Well, each week a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week sounding off on Indiana's request for agricultural disaster assistance in a big portion of the state. Jeffersonville considered for a CBD plant, and Indy's airport ranks among the world's best yet again. Krieg DeVault partner Deborah Daniels joins us again on the Insiders this week. Also, IndyPolitics.org publisher Abdul-Hakim and HRG Strategies President Robert Herzog. And welcome one and all to another edition of the Insiders.
Always good to be here.
We begin with, again, disaster assistance. We all know how wet it has been over much of the state, although some areas hit harder than others. But the governor and the state requesting disaster assistance for 88 of 92 counties, so very widespread.
Yeah, as we were talking about before we came on the air, it's probably easier to figure out which counties aren't asking
right.
For disaster relief. No, it's been a tough year for farmers. First of all, you already had sort of the tariff issues that had to deal with and trade issues. Now put that on top of, flooding, and now we're in the middle of sort of extreme heat waves. What does this do? And it's not just farmers. What does this do for food prices? What does it do, for the rest of our economy? So I think the governor's obviously doing the right thing by requesting disaster relief so these farmers can get the help and the assistance that they need.
And I guess it underscores sometimes we take for granted, I think, the impact of agriculture on the Indiana economy. There's so much technology and innovation happening, but when you get to the blocking and tackling of the crops and the livestock and those types of things, big impact.
Well, when you get right down to it, Mother Nature plays a big role, and this is really concerning.
Yeah, I always say the farmers are the consummate entrepreneur. Yeah. I mean, so much, they're out there on the front lines doing that. Governor Holcomb also making news a week ago, announcing, as expected, a re-election bid. Robert, your take on that and how you think things
Good to see. I mean, I think it was expected, but generally well considered across both sides of the aisle. Governor's done a great job. It'll be really interesting to see how the election season kind of plays out as we start to, make our way through the fall and into next year in the Democratic field, who kind of comes on board. But certainly the right move, and really I think the right, good move for the governor, and hopefully the election season will prove well for everybody in the state, or as we, kind of move through the next 12 to 18 months. Interested
in any themes, business, the economy, economic development has been a big piece of the administration the last 4 years. But Deborah, as you look at themes that may emerge during the election, thoughts?
Well, the governor has really gotten out front on some important issues for the state. Workforce is a big deal. He got out front on the opioid crisis with his very first executive order. He's taken a strong position on some things that others were concerned about: infrastructure, pre-K, and then most recently the hate crimes bill. I mean, so I think that he's going to be very popular during this election because he's not been afraid to
step out on some of those issues.
I think the challenge is going to be when Democrats try to go to make the case as to why they should be elected, they're probably going to try to hit. They're starting to hit on the theme of "quote unquote" missed opportunities. Things like, we had a surplus. We didn't spend it on teacher pay. We spent it on buildings, even though financially you don't want to use one-time revenue for ongoing expenses. They'll talk about the opioid crisis, expanding the bias crimes law. But right now, Holcomb's in a very good place. $7 million in the bank. An approval rating on average is about north of 60%, and so 15 months out of an election, I'd much rather be Eric Holcomb than not be Eric Holcomb.
Quickly, Woody Myers, former state health commissioner, has announced officially on the Democratic side. Anybody else
we're also keeping an eye on State Senator Eddie Melton, who's been making the rounds, ironically with Republican Jennifer McCormick. Carly Macer, state representative out of the Indianapolis area, is looking at it. And then there's always what I call TBA, that person just kind of comes out of nowhere that nobody's expecting, that might be able to get some attention and traction as well.
All right, shifting gears as we look at two developments in terms of redevelopment and innovation in smaller Indiana communities around the state of Indiana. The hub and spoke broke ground in Fishers with a social media twist or social type twist to that development. In Bloomington, the Kiln is another historic building they're wanting to redevelop into innovation space, co-working space, supporting entrepreneurs. Robert, as you look at that, everybody, Fishers is part of their brand, I think, the entrepreneurial thing. Is going to be effective, going to work?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it has a really good chance, and I like the location of that, the jobs and the innovation park that they're really trying to set up. So many in the size of where Indianapolis is at right now, trying to attract those kind of organizations and really the people that want to work at those organizations. It's a good investment, and I think you're going to see that, and you've seen it with 16 Tech here downtown Indianapolis on a much larger scale. Going to continue to really work, especially for Fishers, which is, like you said, it's becoming kind of an innovation, little mini innovation and park hub up there.
Another economic development story, kind of a different twist on this. A CBD plant could be coming to Indiana in Jeffersonville. Actually plans big investment, $52 million for a CBD plant. Could be producing some 5,000 tons of biomass per year. This is an industry, or related to an industry, that's big dollars. Will Indiana take advantage and be a part of it?
Well, I'm one of the people who actually doesn't think that we ought to legalize marijuana, but I think that CBD is a different item altogether. I think we ought to go after that. I think it's a great opportunity for us. I think that we're in competition with Kentucky and Colorado for this, and I would think that given our friendliness toward business, we ought to have a good shot at it, and we ought to go for it.
I take a little bit different approach to my good friend Deborah Daniels, because I do think it should be legalized, but once again, it's reminding people that CBD and THC are two totally different things. So anybody who's thinking, hey, I'm going to go down to Jeffersonville and pick up some stuff and drive home, sorry, all you're going to get is a headache. That's pretty much all you're going to get. No, but I do think when we were having the debate in Indiana about the legalization of CBD oil, I don't think any of the lawmakers thought that something like this type of economic development would spur out of it. And so hopefully as we go forward with the discussion about whether things should be legalized or not, we keep the economic aspect into place, as well as all the public safety and public health concerns.
Two airport stories this week. Robert, I'll start with you on this. Indianapolis International Airport, second on the world's best domestic airports. It's kind of a rerun, you know. Every year it's first or second. Continues to drive real economic development benefits and also perception benefits too for the city.
The only surprise with that, Noah, was that we weren't number one.
Right.
I mean, as somebody who's
2 points
been in
behind,
airport, just about every major domestic airport in the country. That was a big surprise, but we all know it, and now it's become, we continually talk about it, what an economic benefit that airport has been. And the other one that you mentioned too, South Bend, what that's going to do hopefully for just the international context of that, and certainly as South Bend kind of continues its really growth and movement forward out of where they've been over the last 10 to 15 years, but great for the Indianapolis International
Getting
Airport.
international flights, the first commercial international flight into South Bend is part of this effort this week. Great to see airports around the state beginning to connect in that connectivity piece.
Right, and this will be critical for the development of that region, which has really done remarkably well. The first flight in, I read, is the Liverpool soccer team, club that's playing Notre Dame. And so I think for multiple reasons, this is a great thing.
15 seconds left. Indianapolis among top 20 cities for young home buyers. Will that make a difference in Indianapolis's?
Yes, it will. As cities continue to compete for talent and young people, you got to have some measure of affordability for people to be able to live in the place that you want them to come. That's really good news for Indiana.
Well said. And on that, we'll call it a quits for another week of The Insiders. Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, Deborah Daniels, Robert Herzog. Thank you. We'll be right back.